Today, you're going to learn how to create an animated sortable list here in Vue.js. Before we begin, I wanted to mention this video's sponsor, Skillshare.com, which is an online learning community for creators with over 25,000 classes in design, business, and more. So whether you want to fuel your curiosity, your creativity, or even your career, Skillshare is the perfect place to do just that. For instance, you're about to watch my Vue tutorial, but you could watch all of these Vue courses at Skillshare. Skillshare is also super affordable with an annual subscription of being less than $10 a month. But if you're one of the first 500 people to click on the link here in the description in YouTube, then you get the first 2 months 100% free. So join up. Hey everyone, what's up? Gary Simon of Sortable.js. So today we're going to be stepping into the world of Vue, and I'm going to show you from scratch how to create this sortable, draggable, and animated list. Now, you don't have to do this from scratch or from custom because we have something called Sortable.js, and specifically a Vue wrapper that was created for it. So I'm going to show you exactly how to get up and running using this, and also we'll take a look at how to style this as well as I've done here to create any sort of custom animations or styles as well. All right, let's get started. All right, so the first thing we're gonna do in our command line or console, hop into your code folder or wherever you store your projects, and also make sure you have the latest Vue command line interface CLI installed already. And then we're going to do Vue create, and we'll just call this sortable, and that's pretty good right there. And then it's going to ask us if we want to manually select the features, and we will. We're just going to add CSS preprocessors, hit enter. Sass, yes, yes, enter, enter, and no, I don't want to save it as a preset. And then we'll just let this install for a few seconds. All right, and it is installed. Let's cd into sortable. I'm going to clear that for a second and then just show you the GitHub page. I'm going to make sure to link this in the YouTube description if I can remember to do so. And here it is. And basically, it's going to tell you how to install it and also all the directions. And you know, it's pretty versatile, honestly. But let's go ahead and get it installed. So if we come up, we can install it with npm or yarn. We'll just do this right here. I'm going to do the npm route. All right, and let that go. And the next, and by the way, you can use it through a CDN as well, but we're not going to do that. So the next part is just going to show you, the typical use cases for it, and we'll get this up and running in a second here. So if that worked out well, awesome. Let's run npm. No, let's first type in code period. That'll open up my code editor, which is Visual Studio Code. And let's also run npm run serve, which will launch the Vue dev server, and it'll load up momentarily. Once the link is up, in order to click it, control left click here, Windows at least, and here is Vue. Awesome, awesome stuff. So let's go ahead and get started. So let's take a look at the project here, and we want to go into source components and hello world.vue. We want to gut all this stuff right here in between. Yeah, so we just have our template in our div tag right here. All right, so basically, let's get started with the HTML first. So first we'll have, let's make this a little bit larger, Control B to get rid of that sidebar. We'll have an H1 element here where we say, this will be like skills listing out or something. And then we're going to put in draggable, which I'm going to draggable that. And we're going to put in a V model, bind it to my array. Probably makes more sense to call that something like skills, right? We're also going to have a ghost class attribute, which is specific to this sortable project that we're using. And basically that means when you left click and you drag a list item, it's going to attach a class called Ghost, and you'll see what that and how that works in, because we're going to style this with CSS, the Ghost class right here. And then we're also going to put at end equals on end. All right, so that's going to be a method it's going to look for that we'll define here in Vue. And you'll see how that works as well once we get to that part. So let's close out our draggable attributes. And inside of it, we could, and this is according to the documentation, we could just put our div right here. inside of Draggable. But then you won't have the ability to make it animate once you get it in there. So this shows you kind of how to set it up with something called transition group. And this is something specific to Vue itself, not this draggable library that we're using. So we're going to use that transition group, and we're going to put a type of transition and a name. We're going to give it as flip-list, and that will be the beginning of the CSS class that will attach to it in order to make that animation work. All right, so inside of here is where we'll put our div, and this is what will be basically, it will serve as the HTML element for each of our list items. So we're going to say class is sortable, we'll call it. We're going to bind our ID to the element.id. We're going to iterate over it with v4. We're going to say element in my array, like that. And we're going to say the key is element.id. All right. Now let's close that div tag, and then inside we'll just have a strong element and a span as well. So through interpolation, we'll say element.name, and we'll set up this array. We're hard-coded, by the way. Typically, you would obviously be using like a database of some sort to get this stuff, but no big deal. It kind of goes beyond the scope of this tutorial. And this is good right here. So this is the main code for our list. Okay, so now we're going to come down to the logic section, or script area right here. And in order to get this library even working, we have to import it first. And this comes, again, from the documentation. So we're going to import Draggable from Vue Draggable, which is what we installed. And then we're going to add it as a component. All right, so we'll put it right here. Right there. So components, Draggable. All right, that's it. So now we can begin to use it, and it's used by defining the Draggable attribute up here. Very simple. So next, let's go ahead and put in a data here, so we can define some data that we can return. So we'll say my array. All right, so we'll open up our array. We'll say, and it's an array of objects, of course, so we'll say name is Angular, it's a skill, whatever, and the ID is 0. Normally inside of here, this is where you would be making a call or something to some database somewhere. And let's do this, I think 6 times or so. So we'll say React, Vue, HTML. Obviously, these aren't too much related to each other. All right, so we'll do 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. There we go. Okay, I'm also going to have 2 other properties that we're going to define right here. One will be something called old index, and then also new index. All right, and so basically these are just going to be integer values that represent where a given list item that we click has gone from and to in terms of the order from the list. And this is important to be able to retrieve this information if you were to try to save the order or persist it in a database or something like that. Well, then we're going to call methods here, and we'll do this right here. So methods, and remember we have a method that we referenced over here called onEnd. All right, so we'll say onEnd, and we'll say function event, and we're going to console log the event. And you'll see when this gets fired. I'll show you momentarily. So this .oldIndex is going to equal event.oldIndex. And we're going to do the same thing here. So for a new index. And we'll see that we'll find old index here when we look at the console log as well up there. So that's it for the logic section. Now it's just a matter of styling. Before we start on the styling, let's just look and see what this thing looks like right now, because I'm sure it looks like garbage. it actually does work. There, we were not done quite yet with the HTML. I forgot about one thing. Let's come down here, and we're going to put in a paragraph and a strong element, and we'll say previous index, and then right here we'll just put old index, which is the property we defined already, and we'll just say new index. All right, so again, those will be blank to start, but when we move this around, we see they adjust. So let's get the let's make this look a lot better. After all, this is a channel that focuses on UI design quite a bit. So I'm going to Control B. We're going to go to our main. No, we're going to go to app.view, and we're just going to modify a little bit of the HTML. So for the body, we're going to give it just a light gray. That's this right here. We're using RGB instead of hex. And then the app, I'm just going to change the text align. We don't want that. And then we're going to remove margins, just add padding of like 4 EM or something. This isn't going to really be responsive. So now the result should look like this. All right, let's go back to Hello World. Let's remove the image at the top. Wait, it's an app for you. Sorry about that right here. So let's get rid of that line. Simple. All right, so now let's go work on the CSS real quickly. So for the CSS, for H3 element, we'll leave the H3 there. We're going to say strong is display, and we'll do inline block. By the way, let's get rid of this this stuff right here. All right, so this is what we should look like so far. And then we're going to say sortable. Remember, sortable is applied to each div that's repeating. That's the parent container for those list items. So that's going to be a width of 100%, we'll say. And we'll do background is white. Padding will be 1 EM on the inside. Cursor, we're going to change to move. So let's check it out so far. Good. Now we're getting somewhere. We'll also change margin bottom just to 2 pixels, just to separate them out just a little bit from each other. Awesome. And then inside of here, remember we're using Sass, so we can nest this in here. We're going to say float right for the span element, which is just the ID. And this is just to let you know, let's refresh this, that the appropriate list item is being pushed and pulled around wherever it needs to be. All right, after that, we're going to say, everything's wrapped right now in this div class of hello, so we're going to reference that specifically. And also just sortable drag inside of it. All right, and we're going to put opacity 0. Now, let me comment this out for a second. So let me show you what this does. Notice, see this ghost thing right here? Like when you pull or drag an element here within HTML5, we can see this, just this ghost element. If you want to get rid of that, this is how we do it. So let's uncomment that. And now you don't see it anymore. So I didn't personally like that. So that's how you get rid of it. All right, continuing on. Let's do our flip list move. All right, so flip hyphen list hyphen move class transition transform. We're going to just animate the transform property at a ½ second. All right, so that's how you achieve that nice smooth animation. Now you might recall we named it flip list, right? So if we come up here, the name is flip list, but that's how transition group works. You give it a name, and then it'll append on at the end this right here, the move, the hyphen move. All right, after that, let's do our ghost element. All right, because there's not too much, it's kind of hard to see what you're moving because it doesn't change in style. So we do that through that ghost class, which we defined with the ghost class attribute up here, and we bound it to a class called ghost. So that's what we're going to define now. So this is so fun. So let's just say we want to change the font weight to bold. Type, Gary. Come on, type. Oh, wait, it's already bold. That was really stupid. Let's get rid of that. Let's try border left. We'll say 6 pixels solid, RGB 0, 183, 255. That's just like a nice blue. It's right here, right there. All right. So now that's how you do that. So you can do any type of CSS property imaginable now, just to the one that you're pretty much dragging. So we can do even some more stuff, like for instance a box shadow. So we'll say 10 pixels on top and then on the right as well, and then we'll blur it by 10 pixels, maybe 5 pixels, and then maybe you have 1 pixels here. RGBA is going to be 0, 0, 0, 0 for the shadow, 0.14 or so for the opacity. All right. And then let's do right here, opacity 0.7 as well. So we're kind of dimming it out. All right. So it's just, you know, a matter of trying to style it the best you think it would look for that interaction. So let's put and here before. And this is just to show you that you can do a couple other cool things. So for instance, if you wanted to add like an icon showing that it's like currently actively being moved, we can do content empty here. We can put position absolute, width of like 20 pixels, a height of 20 pixels. And what am I doing wrong? Yeah, not a comma there. And then we'll have a margin left by like -50 pixels. And we'll put a background image here of an icon. So we'll put in, reference the assets folder. And we'll call this drag.svg. And I don't have that file right at the moment. So if I right click, reveal an explorer, and we get this open, and off screen, I'm going to get this drag.svg graphic into here. That's from the previous project. And we save it. Ta-da! We can now see it is showing up. Very exciting. So let me show you about the previous index and how that works. So basically this has an index of 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So if we were to move React, which it would be index 1 because we're starting at 0, then we move it from 1, it's going to, and we put it at the very end, it'll be 5. So previous index down here is going to say 1 and then 5 when I let this go. And maybe it'll go from 5 to 4 right here. So that's really important. So inside of this method for our methods on end, which is defined right here, then that's where you would perhaps call, make a call to a database where you would update the data in terms of the order of that list item. Now there's a lot of other options that you can call. There's other methods that you can call. They're all listed here. You have your properties. You also have a move. All right, so every time, for instance, let me get the project back up. Every time you move from one position to another, you will see, and you console logged it, for instance, you would see a console log event fired with a bunch of information about, you know, where it's going from and to as well. So as you can see, if we every time we let go, it's because we have console log. In that event, we'll see we have all this information from which we can use. And you can see the properties, old index right here, and new index as well, which is what I'm using for these values down here. Very, very cool stuff. All right, so hopefully that was useful for those of you who needed a sortable Vue.js solution. All right, so let me know what you think in the comments. Also, make sure to subscribe if you haven't yet, and I'll see you soon. Goodbye.